Hi, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. We're going to be starting here in just a moment. We're going to go ahead and give people a few minutes to go ahead and dive in. And this is going to be a webinar on Retail Pro version 8 reports. I do have an agenda up on the screen currently, so we're going to be going through a few report types, creating some basic reports, and how we can go ahead and turn those basic reports into something a little bit more extravagant with the ranking and sorting. Our report groups, and also some troubleshooting. We're going to go ahead and not dive too deeply into the troubleshooting, but if you do have any questions, or if you guys are working on some reports that are giving you some issues, please feel free to go ahead and raise your hand and give us a question. Everyone will be on mute at the start of this webinar, and as we go ahead and go through, if you have your hand raised, I'll go ahead and read your questions out loud if you type them out. Or if you wanted to go ahead and be part of the discussion, I can unmute you as well. We're just going to go ahead and give it a few more minutes here. Thanks so much. Again, this is Liz with Big Hairy Dog, and this is going to be a Retail Pro version 8 reports webinar. All right, then, so we're going to go ahead and get started for today. Again, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. This is a Retail Pro V8 webinar. And so on the screen, just a few things that we're going to go ahead and go over for today. All right. And so, of course, this is going to look familiar to you guys. Under the Analysis tabs, we're going to have access to our reports. And this is really what we're going to focus on for today's webinar. I did also want to take a moment to point out that we also have our sales chart, our XZ out, and our recalculate SRO. Of course, as a reminder, the XZ out, that X out is going to be the perfect thing to use if you want a checkup on how your sales are doing at any time of the day for any of your stores, or even all of your stores or all of your workstations. Z out is going to be more of our end of day close, and of course those sales charts are again going to be a great place where you can even train your associates, take a look at them. I've seen a lot of employees really start to go ahead and put it on themselves to work a little bit harder to see their numbers go up when they get access to these sales charts. But really all we're going to be working on is in reports. I already have it loaded over here. And so when you do load reports, it opens it up in a secondary window. It is possible to go ahead and accidentally open a few windows of reports, but we do recommend kind of working in one window. And so right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and hit some report types. So a lot of you have to be very familiar with this. We have a few different report types: our journals, merchandise, summaries, and lists. And so the most detailed reports are going to be our journal reports. Our merchandise reports are going to give us some nice statistical information about our actual inventory. Summaries, of course, are that more of a bird's eye view about what's going on, and gives you access to our department level summaries, even style level summaries, which feels like a little bit more like an item report, but still we're looking at it from a bit of a higher glance. And of course our list, where we can go ahead and get a list of our data and really just export them to Excel. You can get a client list, something that can be imported into things like Constant Contact or MailChimp to go ahead and get a quick email blast sent over to all of the customers that we do have email information for. Today, I did want to go ahead and start with journals, since it is one of our more detailed. And so with our journals, one of the ones I like to go ahead and show people right off the bat is a basic receipt journal. So if I go ahead and edit this basic receipt journal here, it drops me right into the design phase. And specifically within that is going to be my layout. So we are under the design layout section, and this is how I can go ahead and decide what fields will be displayed on this particular report. If I jump back into just the design, oh, excuse me, if I actually jump back into my appearance, or in the design, you can actually get a little bit of a heads up on how this report is going to look, and so where we can play with more of the font and the details of this particular report. So we can go ahead and edit what our report header looks like, what that font is, how big it is. So if you have any reports where you have people saying, hey, this is just kind of hard to read, can we up the font a little bit? Remember, we have access to that in under appearance. And we can go ahead and change any of these, even down to our item details, which tend to be, by default, a lot smaller. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hop back into design. Again, we're in our layouts right now. This is deciding what is going to be on the screen. And as a basic sales receipt report, this is what you're going to see, our store, company name. Maybe we don't have multiple stores, so we don't need the store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually just double click and take that out. And you see, now that I've made an edit to this report, it's going to ask me, it's going to make that save button available. And so I am editing a default report. Anybody who's gone through training with Big Hairy Dog probably remembers the saying, you might not want to go ahead and do that. You might want to make a copy of the report beforehand and then edit the copy instead of editing the original. And we normally say that just because if something happens, we remove a field that we needed for that report to really make sense for us, we always have that other copy to go back to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that best practice. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of here. And we're going to go ahead and come back out. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this. Actually, you can see I've made a copy right down here, but I'm going to go ahead and make a brand new one so I know exactly what I'm using this for. We're going to rename it, hit OK, and there we go. Now I have full access to this. Now if I hit edit, you can see it's the exact same report, been fully copied. I'm now going to go ahead and make those changes and save that there. Under my sort, this is deciding how it's sorting by. So you can see I removed store and it was sorting by store. One of those instances where a field that I removed might change the way the report is behaving. And so I need to go ahead and be aware of that. In this case, I can actually just remove that because I don't need it to sort by the store, but I do want it to continue to sort by both receipt and document SID number. Over here under total, this is where we can set up running totals. In this particular report, I might not want it because I have just a single store and I'm looking at receipts. But I can go ahead, or what would have made sense is if there was stores, I could have added subtotal for every single store. So that way I don't have to go ahead and manually try to break out that math. Let's say this also had cashier information on it. If I had cashier information on it, maybe I also want this separated by cashier. So this is also taking a look at my agenda one more time. One of the aspects that catches people off guard, that subtotal / running total, what when not defined. What that refers to is over here. So subtotal when, subtotal what. So when the receipt number changes, I want you to subtotal my discount percent. Now, as you can see, that's a little silly. My receipt number is going to change every time that there's a new receipt. But that's where we would be able to go ahead and enter like our cashier. And I want you to go ahead and subtotal my cashier when what? Maybe when my store, or really anything else. I want you to go ahead and subtotal that when my store ships. Those are the errors that people run into. And so this is just one of the subtotal what. We also have a running total. So the difference between a subtotal and a running total, of course, is the subtotal is going to go ahead and group just that specific group, and it's going to restart. So if we're subtotaling by cashier, once that cashier is done, it's going to go ahead and restart and have a new cashier. If we were to use a running total, so that wouldn't really work for a cashier because then it would just add it as it goes. The first cashier would be accurate, then the second cashier would have both their information and the previous cashier's information. A running total is going to be something more for maybe our extended price or extended discount dollars. So you can see overall how much discount dollars were given out in a running total. And of course, our grand total We don't need too much explanation for that one. Our grand total is just going to be our grand total at the end. No matter how many stores, no matter how many cashiers, no matter how many receipts we have, this is going to just total everything up. And so I do want to go ahead and grand total. Actually, in this report, I want to let it run open. We're going to go ahead and just let it run open, and we can go ahead and come back and play with any of these totals. If anybody has any questions on these totals. Ranking. So ranking is how we can also go ahead and start building our bestseller reports or our worst seller reports. Again, this is a journal, a sales receipt journal. So I might want to go ahead and play with ranking a little bit more in my summaries. So I can summarize to a department level and then rank them by my extended price. And I can see what departments are doing the best. I also have my options here. Now under options, we can go ahead and set up some default filters and some default operations. So let's go ahead and check it out. So over here, my filters, we can filter to any of the filters that I have created, or I can let that run open. I can also go ahead and pre-select how I want my orientation. And I'm going to go ahead and say landscape. I probably don't have enough data for it, but we're going to do that. Non-repeat mode. So non-repeat mode is essentially, do you want the information to repeat if duplicate? If you want, or if you don't want it to repeat if duplicate. So with this on, that means we're not repeating any duplicate information. With it off, we would be repeating that duplicate information. People go either way on this. So people like the look of the non-repeat mode. It's just a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to read. For those people who might choose to always export to Excel, they actually might want it to repeat so that they can go ahead and manipulate the data even further without worrying about needing to go ahead and stick to one sort. And again, our receipt date and time, we can go ahead and set this. If I open that up, I can set it for a fixed period. So what I'm actually going to do, I know I have some older data in here. Let's go ahead and up this a little bit. Keep on going until, I think I have something around here. Yes, that's true. All right, and let's go ahead and just make it all the way until October 1st, 2020 here. So that's a pretty solid range. Hopefully I have at least a little bit of data in there. All right. There we go. Again, we can go and add a filter. We don't have to. We can add record limits. The receipt types allowed. This is something I do want to pay attention to, especially in a sales receipt type journal. I don't want to look at lost sales, check-ins, or security. Those will just muddy my report, and I only want to look at sales and returns. Or perhaps we're building a specific return report. I only want to see items that have been returned, and I want to make sure I have my discount and discount reason on the screen. And I can come in here and just deselect my sales and say okay. So again, canceled reverse receipts. We're going to go ahead and just say our normal receipts. This is going to speak to whether or not we want to show the item detail. Especially on a journal, it does have access to our item detail, and we can choose to or not to display that information. So I'm going to go ahead and actually say yes, only because I know I don't have too much information on these reports, and so I wanted to be able to display something. And then we have, of course, our packaging kit information as well. For those of you who don't really utilize packages and kits, you're never going to actually use it. For the few of you that actually do utilize packages and kits, it is a really cool filter, and I would definitely go ahead and explore making a few reports specifically for your kits and package items. It's something that I don't see a lot of people doing, and when they start to dabble in it, they find that they get some useful information. Hopefully, they'll get some useful information. All right, now under the details, this is where we can see what item details are going to be displayed. And so we did elect to show item details. And so I can go ahead and really I have access to a variety of different item level information. And so I would go ahead and definitely, if you're going to take the time to show those item level details, make sure it's displaying information that is going to be useful to you in this report. For right now, I think that's pretty solid. We're going to go ahead and hit OK there. I'm going to go ahead and save this report. And I'm going to go ahead and back out. So this is a report that we just edited from an existing report. We can, of course, always create a new report as well. That new report, we just hit new. It's going to go ahead and ask you to select a report area. So are we looking for sales information, receiving information, transfers, SOs, POs, TOs? What information are you hoping to grab? And for those of you that are considering moving to V9, the reporting is quite a bit different in version 9. But of course, as a reminder, anything that you've created in version 8 when you're doing your upgrade, we're going to go ahead and take those mission critical reports. We're going to make sure that you have something that works for you in version 9. And version 9 actually has access to quite a bit more information as well, because it is an open relational database in version 9. That aside, let's go ahead and just jump into this really quick. I'm still going to come back and run that other report, but I wanted to show you just how easy it is to build something from scratch. And so it does jump directly into options. So we can set those basic things right off the bat. What receipt information or receipt filter do you want it to default to, if any? Do you want it to show item level detail? And that way you know later on if you even need to go ahead and edit those details. Once we're done with those options, again, we're going to go ahead and come back to layout. And right now it's a sales receipt new report. So that's the only thing on there is that sales number. We have access to everything that's below that gray line. As you may have noticed, it is not in alphabetical order. And that does frustrate a few people sometimes, but they do have a very handy find feature up here. So if you go ahead and start typing, it should come up, and then we just go ahead and hit enter. It'll highlight that item for you. Although it does not move the item, we do have to go ahead and make that second step of double-clicking it and getting it above the line. Once you double-click it, it does move it above the line. You don't have to worry about it anymore. One other thing I like to go ahead and note, you can see this moving up and down. I'm using my scroll little ball on my mouse. And so this is something that remains in version 9. So I always try to go ahead and warn people, it's the easiest way to scroll, and I agree. But when you do it here in the reports and in a few other places in Retail Pro, it actually just moves the item you're highlighted on. And I've seen that mess up the order of reports for people that they've worked a lot, or they've spent a lot of time on it, and then they don't realize that they're over here and they're moving all of their items off of the screen. But again, we fill in as much of this on our layouts as we want, and that's going to be our first level of fields, not within that item level detail. Again, we can go ahead and have our sorting options and our totals. And so long as we're keeping in mind that we have both a when and a what, we should avoid any of those what, when, not defined errors. All right, so I won't finish this one up. I did make us go through editing a receipt journal, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel this for right now. All right, so we're going to come back out. No. All right, so then I can go ahead and run this particular filter. I can double click it. And something that I really like about version 8 is that we do have our last run button right on the screen. In version 9, it does hang on to the last time you ran the report, and you can add permanent filters just like you can here, but they don't have that nifty little button. All right, so again, I'm going to be okay with this. I know it's a larger range, but I don't have too much data. I'm not going to change too much over here. Under our filter criteria, we didn't set up a filter, but I can go ahead and pull this up over here. On the fly, change that to sales 1, and then have access to my sales 1 filter. So let's go ahead and actually clear that. I'm going to go ahead and, though, let it run open. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and that's going to run that report for me. And there we go. I can go ahead and see my receipt journal information. I can see at the very top, it has all of my report information in one convenient spot. So if we print this, forget about it, come back to it the next day, I don't have to worry about forgetting what information I pulled, how it's sorted, or anything like that. It's all right there for me. And you can see over here, unfortunately, this report's a little big in landscape, so it did cut off. So this is one of those reports that I would definitely want to go ahead and export to Excel. Printing this might not print it as beautifully as I want it to, but then I can go ahead and come down over here send to Excel as text. I can send to Excel normally. I can also go ahead and send it to Notepad, PDF, whatever's a little bit easier. Let's just throw it in Excel for a second. All right. Okay, perfect. So you can see it exports to Excel, and that so long as we have Excel on the computer that you're running these reports from, that you're trying to export out of, it usually comes over beautifully. If you have any issues with formatting, I would definitely try out that exporting via text. Go ahead. Sorry about that. I thought I saw a hand up, but we're okay. And that might go ahead and correct it. Sometimes it could be just a slight formatting issue, but really I haven't seen that issue with version 8 too much at all. But here, again, we can go ahead and manipulate the data even further. If we want to go ahead and remove that filter criteria, so long as I keep my column headers, I know what everything is supposed to be. I can go ahead and take a look, and I can even add lines and subtotal myself. If I wanted to go ahead and just on the fly subtotal a specific receipt or group that I didn't get a chance to do in the report. But of course, and this missing files within the date range. So I'm getting this because this is actually a relatively new install of version 8 that I have. And I do have some history from a few people that I've been helping out. So it does look like I'm missing a few files. And so I'm getting this information here. For people actually in business, you probably shouldn't be getting this. If you do get one of these, you can always give us a call. We can double check and make sure that there's nothing going on with your .dat files. But really, I'm trying to go ahead and I'm trying to run a report for times that the system technically didn't exist. All right, and so what I was going to finish up the thought that I was on. So besides being able to go ahead and subtotal and edit the data further in Excel, of course, it is very easy just to go into the report, add that running total, and rerun the report. I'm going to go ahead and close that. We're not going to save that. All right, and there we go. I can go ahead and print this. I can exit. I'm just going to go ahead and do you want to save the report? We're just going to say no for that. All right. And so if we have any questions so far, I know we've gone over a lot, especially with journals being the more detailed versions of the report. But like I said, everything within reports is a little bit, it's not necessarily trial and error, but the more you get a chance to dive in and play with it, the easier it becomes to understand for sure. And out of the box, Retail Pro does give you quite a bit of interesting reports. I would definitely go ahead and make a copy of your favorites and start adding more information, keeping in mind what kind of reports you're making though. So, for example, if I jump into a summary report here, and I have, let's see, let's come on down to my sales department only. If I go ahead and double click this report actually, and I want to go ahead and open this up to, there we go. No filters, no orientation. I want to make sure. We're going to go ahead and say okay. This is just a basic department level summary. So these are the departments that I have, and you can go ahead and see the extended $P on it. Now, if I were to add something to this report, like let's say ALU, now that wouldn't, we would get information, it would run, but it wouldn't really make sense for this type of report because again, this is summarizing it at a department level. We have multiple ALUs in a single department. And so if we went ahead and put ALU on this, what the system would do is it would find the first ALU and display that. And so you see how it can go ahead and kind of skew what we might be thinking the report is showing us. So be sure to keep those things in mind when you're deciding what kind of report you need to make. Does it need to have item level information? Yes, if the answer is yes, then we need to have a report that is at the item level, or that at least shows us the item level. All right, I'm going to close that. And so I'm going to go ahead and say this one more time, this other department summary. Or actually, let's go ahead and, actually, I don't think I have too many discounts. Let's go ahead and run this department summary one more time. I'm going to go ahead and remove the sales filter. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up again. Like I said, I don't have too much information in this particular sandbox. Here we go. This might be a little bit closer to something that people are already running, department level summary. So again, for this department, ABC, and my department, TES, I've sold a total of 41 and 4 items respectively. So again, we can absolutely go ahead and get some additional information on here that might not work for this particular report, but that would be beautiful on a journal report. But this does give you that bird's eye view on how your department is doing. So we're not going to go ahead and save this report. I'm going to go ahead and copy this guy one more time. Call it webinar. All right, we have that guy there. I'm going to edit. And so here we go. And so again, we can go ahead and get that store information, receipt date information on there. Receipt date information in this particular report wouldn't work, or it would run, but does not give us usable information. And I just want to go ahead and make sure we don't have any questions on that. All right, I'm not seeing any hands, I'm not seeing any questions just yet. So we're going to go ahead and keep on going. All right, and so a summary report, again, would be great for that bird's eye view. I wanted to go ahead and come over here to sort. So we're sorting by DCS. We could, in a multi-store environment, you can also run a department summary report. I might also go ahead and sort that by store and put in store information onto this report. So that way we can see, what store this is for, or you could even run this report, make a copy of it, and put a permanent filter to only be looking at specific stores. Personally, what I would really enjoy, what I would like to do, because then I can automate those reports. Remember that automating reports is an option as well. And so if you have reports that you run at the end of the month and you want them ready for you and on the 1st, what better way than to just automate that? It's never going to go ahead and miss a beat unless something happens, and of course give us a call. But ultimately we can go ahead and say this is our report summary webinar store 1. Make a copy report summary webinar store 2. And then we would just edit the report, and in our options, I can go ahead and make sure that whatever filter is using is specific to my store 1 filter. I have a sales store 1 filter. In addition to reports, I did want to go ahead, and this is the perfect time to take a quick second and talk about filters. So I can come down here to edit filters, and this is editing my sales filter. If I jump from, it automatically drops you into elements. You can actually jump into criteria, and this is where you can actually put in all of that filtering information. So what I'm going to actually do, I'm going to come back out. All right, so that was accessing the filter from within the report, from while I'm editing a report. But I can actually, right over here, access the filters directly. So I'm going to jump into the filters, and I can see all of the filters that I already have built. I can easily create a brand new one. What area are we talking about? What kind of filter are we going to make? So I'm going to talk about a sales merchandise filter. So this new filter is going to be sales store 1. Okay. Let's go ahead and enter receipt date, receipt time. Go ahead and add receipt date and time. Here, store, of course, we need that. And for right now, let's just say that's enough. I would want to be able to go ahead and enter a sales range, receipt date range, and I need to be able to enter my store. So let's go ahead and add that store 1. Receipt date, we're going to go ahead and do a fixed period in time. And again, I have a very limited data, so we're going to go ahead and open this up. There we go. And we're going to save that. And now that's going to be available for us to use. And so I can go ahead and then use my Retail Pro button to back out. You can see that Sales Store 1 is now added to my filters. Come back out. Go ahead and jump back into reports. Sorry, there we go. I missed that step. So it was reports. Didn't necessarily need to back out in that moment. All right. And so then I can go ahead and we talked about summaries a little bit here. Again, bird's eye view for your departments. Another one that I see people using summaries for is, of course, our vendors. How are our vendors doing? Are they getting us our items? Are our items actually moving for those vendors? We have a good margin on them. And hopefully the answer to all of that is yes. The other thing that you can go ahead and see over here is our check-ins and check-outs shift reports. So if you're using the check-ins and check-outs, you've hopefully already gotten a chance to take a look at our shift reports. And hopefully you're running those weekly, and that way we can go ahead and see if there are any errors, any mismatches, and we can go ahead and correct those before we have a huge pile to go ahead and correct. In version 9, we also have the similar shift reports and check-ins and check-outs, and those are actually broken out by hours and minutes as well. And again, over here, we also have things like our best sellers. So I would really like to go ahead and take a moment to take a look at this. So this is the best seller by dollars, and this is our top 25. So if I go ahead and just edit this for a second, we can take a look at the guts of this report. All right, so we are looking at DCS vendor code description 1, 2, quantity sold, extended price, cost margin, all of that good stuff. So with the appearance of description 1 and description 2, I can tell this is going to be an item level report. Of course, you can tell that from the title as well, bestseller, and not bestseller by department. All right, and there we go. We can come on down to our sorting. You can see we're sorting by DCS code, vendor code, totals. So it looks like we're not subtotaling anything. Ranking, of course, this is the important part. This is what makes it a top report or bestseller, top 25 report. Taking a look at our extended P dollars, or extended price, and the quantity sold. And so over here, again, under options, sales accessories is actually a filter that I don't have. And so if you run into this, it could mean that we have a little bit of missing data. Not the worst thing in the world, but definitely something that you want to go ahead and give us a call about. And of course, I'm getting this because again, I'm working with different people. I grabbed a bit of information and I didn't go far enough back to have access to this particular filter. But there we go. And then this down here is how we make that record limit. Record limit 25. This is my top 25, hands down, no matter what, because I have that record limit set. Of course, if we only have 26 items in our inventory, that's not, that's not great. We might want to lower that limit a little bit, but chances are you have more than that. And this is a really great report to run for your top 25. All right. And so from there, I'm going to go ahead and, actually, I'm going to also take this. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and save this guy. This is one that I've already edited, so it wasn't an original, so I didn't go ahead and create a second copy of it. But now I'm going to go ahead and jump in and double click. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. For me, I might not have that many items. I don't have that many items. So we're going to go ahead and just see just a few basic ones here. But again, you can go ahead and see that report. And again, this is going to tell you that we are actually running off the line. So if we printed this, it might not print as beautifully. So we can go ahead and export it and kind of play with it a little bit more in Excel or to PDF. All right. So over here, I also wanted to go ahead and point out our inventory on hand summary. So this is probably one of the most run summaries across the board. We also have inventory totals, but that inventory on hand report is the key, is the go-to for most people. That's a pretty standard report. Again, jumping in to take a look at the guts of things, we can see it's broken out into department, class, and subclass. This gives us a little bit more filtering options instead of lumping it all together into DCS. Again, we have our vendor attribute description 1 and 2. Of course, this is an inventory on hand summary, so it, of course, will have those item level information. So we're going to go ahead and come down, sorting. We have quite a bit under sorting, totals. So it looks like we are subtotaling. it's a little hard to see, but you can see quantity there, and we're subtotaling by department. So subtotal and run total when, subtotal quantity. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and also grand total quantity here. And so there, I'm going to go ahead and jump down. And again, ranking, actually, looks like we're not ranking at all. So this isn't, just a basic inventory report. It's going to listen to the sorting, and it's not going to care about ranking this particular report. Options. Let's go ahead and just let that run completely open. That works. I might flip that over to landscape since the rest of my reports seem to be cutting off a little bit. We're going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to go ahead and jump back out, double click, and there we go, and I'll go ahead and hit OK. And that gives me a pretty standard, and you can see here I've done a pretty bad job of receiving, but I have made sales, some in the negative for most of these items. So my negatives are displaying in parentheses instead of with a negative, and most people in V8 are going to be comfortable with that and used to seeing that. You can see there's also a few items where I really don't utilize my DCS2. So in this case, I would definitely want to go ahead and remove that from the screen and put something else that would go ahead and work better in this particular report. Remember, you don't have to live with information that you don't need. You can take it off the report. Just be sure that you're double checking what it's totaling, subtotaling by, so you don't hit those errors. The other error that you might get is the nothing to print error. So if I go ahead and close this out here, no, and I go ahead and run this, actually we're going to run a sales report. I know I don't have too many sales, so I'm going to go ahead and run this for, there we go, yeah, just that one day in 2018. And there we go. I have nothing to print. I have no sales on that day. So that's when you're going to go ahead and get this information if there really is no data. Now, if you were open on that day and you're getting the nothing to print, give us a call. We need to go ahead and check out what's going on and why you can't see that data. And if it could be something like that, missing that file or corrupted file or something that we need to go ahead and get corrected. All right. So the other thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about was our merchandise report. And lists will be very snappy, very quick. I'm sure you guys have already played around with the lists. Again, they're going to be great for exporting your data out of Retail Pro. If you don't normally export your data out or you had no reason to, you might not be running lists too often, but we do have a few other reports in there that I want to point out. Okay, so here under my merchandise reports, this is where we're going to go and be spending some more time in, just because there's so many reports that I think are extremely useful. One of the most useful that I see people running, of course, is that on hand by item, on hand / sales by item last 30 days is another really good one. So on hand and sales, those are technically two different data types. And that's okay. Retail Pro 8 does a really good job of allowing you to have a lot of control and access a lot of your data from within reports. And you can go ahead and essentially make any kind of report that you want. The downside to that is we kind of already talked about, where you might be putting information that just doesn't quite make sense for that particular kind of report. And although it is displaying information, that information might be misleading you. So it's just important to remember what level you're looking at. And so if I go ahead and edit this one more time, again, want to go ahead and make sure that we're all comfortable with jumping in here, being able to go ahead and make edits on the fly. Of course, copying it beforehand is going to be best practice. But the more comfortable you get, the more you'll realize the more comfortable you get, the more you'll understand what needs to be tested and what you can just kind of edit on the fly. Especially in the beginning, recommend test everything. All right, so over here, this DT1. So that's our data type 1. So remember when I said that on-hand and sales are two different data types. So DT1 is going to be on-hand. DT2 is going to be our sales. It's important to remember that it's not going to go ahead and really classify these labels. It's not going to go ahead and call this on-hand quantity, and it's not going to call it sales quantity. it's going to stick with that D1, or DT1 and DT2. So we got to make sure we keep those straight in our heads. Also, this report might not make as much sense. So if I go ahead and back out a second, actually, and say no, I hit new. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a new report here. And this is where it's a little bit different here in my merchandise report. So instead of asking what kind of report, it automatically dropped me into options first. And I now have access to this data types. So if I open this up here, I can add different data types. So what data types are we looking at? Again, we're looking at on hand this time. The description of my on hand is going to be on hand. That's fine. I'm going to add one more, and we're going to be looking at, let's also look at let's look at on hand and on order. There we go. And so this is also where we need to go ahead and set our date ranges. So I wasn't paying close enough attention to my other date range, but remember, I don't have a whole lot of data in here. So we're going to come in here a second, and I'm going to go ahead and edit this. All right, okay. And over here, we're going to go ahead and, oh, well, yeah, no, that's my on hand. That's my current on hand. Sorry about that. That's why I didn't pay attention to the date range. We're going to go ahead and move forward. So there we go. We've added these. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. We can add multiple data types. We can add more data types if we want. I'm going to keep this a little simple. I know I don't have too much information. I'm going to keep that like that. All right. So for this new report, it's going to go ahead and be my on hand. On hand and on order. All right, any filters? What orientation do I want? Non-repeat mode. I'm actually going to go ahead and say no to that. I'm fine with it repeating. Record limit. I only want to see the top 10 items. And so we can go ahead and set up what that top 10 is going to be based on our ranking. So what is this being ranked by? Remember, actually, I'll leave it running open. Remember, I only have a few items in here, so even that 10 would have brought them all in. So again, if we're going to go ahead and put on hand, in transit, min, max, or price levels for store 1 or store 2, we're just going to go ahead and leave that there. Min, max type, I'm okay. When it's 0 show, I'm going to go ahead and show stores. We're going to say show items with 0 data. Or we can choose to leave it blank, and that way it won't display. But we're going to go ahead and leave it like that. Again, under layouts, we're going to decide what items. Let's go and do DCS name, item number. Let's do vendor code, description 1, description 2, attribute size, UPC. You guys might not be using ALU too heavily. Let's go and see what that tax code is as well. And let's go ahead and get our important ones. And our D2 quantity. There we go. So we got those guys on there. That's about all I want right now. I want to sort this by DCS. That works. I will go ahead and leave that as is for right now. But we can go ahead and sort it by anything else. We also have vendor code on that report. Now, do I want this to total by anything? For this particular report and for how limited my data is, I might not need to subtotal this particular report. Or I can say if I added store, again, we could subtotal by store. Ranking. So I want to rank by my on-hand quantity. We're back at options. We wanted to go and make any last-minute edits. And, of course, we have access to that edit filter if we wanted to go ahead and assign a specific filter and then edit that filter on the fly. We're going to go ahead and hit save there. Come back out. And I'm going to go ahead and run this report. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. And there we go. We've built a pretty standard on-hand and on-order report. So we can see I have a few items that actually have some on-hand information, and then I have actually none of them are on the purchase order currently. So actually I have -11 on my logo shirt, so that really needs to get on the purchase order today. So let me go ahead and take a moment after I've run this report. I can see all the places where I'm negative and might really want to consider opening a purchase order, jump back into Retail Pro, and make that purchase order and get those items in. With this being so far into the negative, I might also want to go ahead and double check that we didn't accidentally just fail to receive a shipment that came in. So there's some good examples of why running these kinds of reports can be extremely helpful. All right. So the other thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about a little bit over here, where are the sales that have multiple date ranges. So like these guys over here are comparison reports. This year, last year reports, yesterday versus same last year reports, last 7 days versus last year. So we do our best to try to go ahead and load a few of these. If you guys are missing any of these reports and you are interested in getting something or building something similar, please give us a call. We'd love to go ahead and either walk you through to it. Hopefully you guys would go ahead and take some time to try to go ahead and play with it a little bit. But if you hit a wall, this is what we're here for. So I want to go ahead and look at sales by department, last 7 days versus last year. And in my particular case, we're not going to have too much data to look at, but still, I want you guys to be sure that you know how to build these reports, what they look like. And so in this particular report, I want you to see that over here, we're separating it by DCS code department. Our DT are technically the same data types, but we have 2 different date ranges on them. So DT1 is going to be this year, last 7 days, and DT2 is going to be last year, same time frame. And so I'm going to go ahead and hop out for just a second, say no here. I'm going to go ahead and say new, and under data types, I show you how that looks. Add 1. Let's go ahead and say our receipts, or even just our net sales, and then we can go ahead and say this year, give it that date range for this year. This year, 7 days. Open this up. Let's do week to date. It's a nice rolling date range, a dynamic date range, so that's always going to go ahead and change. I will not have to go ahead and remember to edit this report and change that date. It's always going to roll week to date. All right, here we go. Okay, add, and again, I'm going to look at net sales one more time. And we're going to go ahead and say last year, 7 days. We're going to come on down here. I'm going to go ahead and one more time do that week to date. So we're going to go ahead and do week to date last year. There it is, week to date last year. So you see, that's actually very simple to build, very simple to make. And then again, the rest of it is the same as what we've gone through. We're going to go ahead and make sure that the layouts are going to display the fields that we want. We're going to be able to choose whether we're showing, item detail. In this case, I might want to make it, more of a department level summary, so we don't need item details. But we're going to go ahead and say OK here. And there we go. OK. And no, those are our 2 data types defined. Same data type, 2 different date ranges. All right, so we don't need to go ahead and finish this. We're going to go ahead and say, yes, we'll cancel that. No. And then I'm going to go ahead and come back to my 7 days report. All right, so that's how the data types were built. Once the data types are built, again, we're going to get the items onto, our fields onto the screen. This is a department level report, so really all I need is DCS department name and then those data types, DT1 and DT2. Keeping in mind which one is which, we're good. And we're going to come down to sort by DCS. Total, what's going to total? I want to subtotal my DCS. And then what are we going to subtotal? So this is what we're subtotaling here. We're really subtotaling everything. So every time there's a change in DCS, we're subtotaling both data type quantities, both data type extended price, and both data type extended margin dollars. And that's about it. We can also add grand total if we wanted to, but if we're fine with just leaving it subtotal by department, we're good there. And ranking, we don't have a ranking on this one. If I did want it to go ahead and display, we could remember to bring it above the line. And we're back at options. So we've made it all the way back here, and I'm good. So we're just going to go ahead and hit save on that. I don't want to edit any filters. Oh, actually, I do want to edit this filter. Let's go ahead and come on in here. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it at no filter. All right. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and double click. I'm going to run this. We're going to go ahead and say OK. Nothing to print. Yeah, I was worried about that. So unfortunately, I actually didn't have any sales within those date ranges. Let's go ahead and see if I can maybe dig it back on my item level. Yeah. Well, I won't force you guys to go ahead and watch me build a whole new receipt or anything like that. But please test it out on your reports. It's a really interesting report to go ahead and get to view. Yeah, nothing to print. I mean, essentially, it just gives you those extended quantity, extended price at the department level for each year. And again, it'll go ahead and have that data type on there. So you have to remember what that looks like. If you have any issues with building it, or if you again don't have the reports, please feel free to go ahead and reach out to us. We'd love to go ahead and help you get the reports that you need to go ahead and make your life a little bit easier. All right, and then over here, this is another report that I really enjoy. No sale by vendor last 90 days. No sale by department. So if a vendor has gone a whole 90 days and I haven't sold even one of their items, I think I really got to know about that. So I would go ahead and run a report like this. And so if I were to go ahead and open this up, I'm not sure if I have a vendor in here. Filter no sales. Go ahead and jump over here to no sales, last sold date, excluding. That's how we get around it. So remember, in your filtering, your filters are extremely powerful, and they do have the power to both include and exclude items. So if we just exclude all of the vendors that have or that don't have a last sale date between the last 90 days, then we have a hit list of people that we need to get start reconsidering whether we're going to keep ordering from them. I go ahead and hit OK here. All right. So I had some item level detail here, but we can see these are some items that were sold quite a bit ago, in 2019 over here. So nothing in the last 90 days at all for this vendor here, that BHD vendor. So I got to go ahead and take a look. What's going on with these items? Why aren't they moving? All right. And in this particular report as well, you can see I've lost a negative. So perhaps the reason why they're not moving is because I haven't received them in properly. So again, give you some insight onto how things are going within your own department and within your own stores. All right. Coming back out to lists. All right. So over here on our list, again, we have our customer address list. Customer address list sorted by zip code. And so if you don't have this particular report that's sorted by zip code, again, let us know. We can help you out with that. But it's essentially just sorting by that field. So if I were to go ahead and edit this and open it up, coming down to the sort, it's just sorted by zip code first. So that's really the big difference here. We add that to the screen for you. Say no. All right. So like I said, besides being able to export your data and getting them into things like Constant Contact, customers with emails, we can do a big old email blast. Again, MailChimp, anything, Outlook, even if you wanted to just kind of grab all of the emails and be able to copy and paste them onto BCC. But we also have things like store credits. So if you want to go ahead and get a view of how many people out there do I have that have store credit, we can run a report on there, and we can even add our last sale date. So if they have a store credit of over $100, but they haven't been in the past 5 years, maybe we want to send them a quick email, remind them that we're here and they have that credit. Come do some shopping. Again, departments, all information. That's going to be something, again, more for exporting data out of Retail Pro to have it, whether that be to prep for an upgrade or anything like that, or just to be able to go and have a copy somewhere. But we also have that in codes and names, our employee lists, vendor codes, and vendor information. Again, just more stuff that kind of you can just export out of Retail Pro. I did want to go ahead and take a moment. I know it's not a report officially, but I did also want to go ahead and jump into Retail Pro, jump into merchandise and my department. And let me go ahead and jump into that list view. You see, I don't have very many departments, but I did want to go ahead and remind you that we can go ahead and actually select and export directly out of Retail Pro as well. So we can go ahead and export these. We can go ahead and control the shift, grab all of these, export them to Notepad. We have all that information there, or of course Excel. But you can do some exporting directly from Retail Pro. But the reports, in my opinion, do sort them and organize them a little bit nicer. That's really the main reason for spending a little bit more time on these particular reports. Besides, like I said, our customer information or employee information. All right. So that was a lot of talking. Now that we've gone through the rest of our report types, that's pretty much everything on our list here. So we've gone over our summaries, journals, lists, and merchandise. Not in that order. Creating reports, so common changes, like things that we did go over for common changes, adding maybe margin dollar, adding item number, removing department, or removing DCS2 if you don't use it, and replacing it with something that you do use. Maybe you do use auxiliary 1. And so we did get a chance to go ahead and talk about some of that. Again, layout, sorting, scheduling. So scheduling is something that we briefly talked about, but I didn't go ahead and get too far into it. Remember that Retail Pro version 8 has its own scheduler. In version 9, we do rely on the Windows Task Scheduler, which I also enjoy, but version 8 does have its own scheduler. That Retail Pro 8 scheduler is what we go ahead and set up to automatically run these reports, and it's very simple to set up. We're going to go ahead in this webinar. We're just kind of talking about it a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and run through setting one up here, just because I unfortunately don't have a report that is going to work for what I need it to do. But you always essentially want to make sure that we have the filters set up, and once the filters are set up how you want them, they just automatically run no matter what. And if you do experience any issues with it, give us a call. We open up our Pro scheduler and we make sure that it's working properly. Occasionally it might have a hiccup if somebody, if we're using maybe a sysadmin password to run these auto reports and we change the sysadmin password. I think that is probably the most or what happens most often when reports or anything that's set to automatically run just suddenly stops working. We either changed the password of whatever account it was using, or maybe we accidentally deleted our auto run account. But if you have any questions at all about that, please let me know. So that we've reached toward the end here. And so I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. If we have any questions at all, please go ahead and feel free to raise your hand or type it out. Other than that, I thank you very much for joining me on this webinar. And again, if you have any desire to take a closer look at any of the reports that we looked at today, please give us a call at 800-377-7776. Or, of course, if you have any tech issues or if you're experiencing any of the weird errors that we were kind of talking about, please give our tech line a call at 916-368-1070. Again, my name is Liz. I'm actually going to go ahead and right over here, Liz M at all right. I'm going to go and blow this up a little bit. And so this is my email address. It's going to be lizm@bighairydog.com. If you do have any questions, you don't really feel that you need to go ahead and set up an appointment or give us a call, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll go ahead and let you know what I think is going on with your reports, and tell you, of course, if I think we should go ahead and get you on with a trainer or a technician. If it's something simple, I'll walk you through it via email. I've not seen any questions yet. So again, we're going to go ahead and, oh, we actually got one. Give me one second. Thanks, John. That was just a thanks. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. If there are no questions, you guys can feel free to start heading out. I'm going to stick around for a little bit just in case anybody thinks of any questions before they want to head out. Thanks again so much. All right. So I think we have no questions for today. So again, thank you all for joining us. We'll be sending out this recording as soon as we can here. It does take some time to go ahead and post, and it will also be available on our website in our previously recorded webinars. Thank you so much. Have a great one.